Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
Great news. We've got a sponsor. This show is now brought to you by Miles Franklin. And when it comes to protecting your wealth, you know there's nothing better than gold and silver. That's what I'm buying. I hope you're doing the same. And once you make the decision to buy gold and silver, there's no better place than Miles Franklin. Look, they've been in business 22 years. And the reason I'm a customer is because when you buy, they ship. Go to milesfranklin.com or call them at 800-822-8080 to get a free quote. 1490 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. If you've given thought to diversifying your assets, particularly purchasing real estate abroad or putting assets abroad, and if your neighbors all think that you're crazy and that this thing of black swans descending upon the U.S. and the Western world in droves, they can't accept it, well, maybe you need to listen to Gary Gibson. He's at whiskeyandgunpowder.com, an extensive writer, traveler, and guest on the show. Gary, welcome back.
Thank you, Gary. Good to be back.
Hey, good to have you, because I know that I haven't gotten to travel much in the past few months, but I'm sure you've been all over the place. Where have you been and what have you been doing?
Not as much as I would have liked, but where I go is enough for me. I've been in Nicaragua lately, visiting Rancho Santana that Bill Bonner, chairman of Agora Incorporated, has set up down there. And we had an editorial meeting, the Agora financial people, and I got to go down and, again, to Latin America and enjoy not being in the U.S. for a little while.
Yeah, and so we're talking about diversifying geopolitical risks, which if you're in the U.S., what do? How do you get assets abroad without getting hassled and without breaking the law?
I'm no expert in this, but there are plenty of people that are friends of mine that are, and they seem to be buying a lot of land elsewhere. That's probably a good start. As far as like getting your gold and stuff across the borders, I mean, you have to kind of buy it over there to begin with. I wouldn't try to travel with it. That can get kind of messy. So.
Yeah, well, traveling with 10 ounces of gold probably will keep you out of trouble somewhat, but I was coming back from the Silver Summit, and I had bought, I don't know, not a lot of silver, but I had enough, and it was in my carry-on, because obviously I'm not putting it in my suitcase, because if you read the news recently, they have 200 luggage thefts a day in Kennedy Airport in New York, and that's conservative. That's what gets reported. And the TSA guy saw it and said, "Oh, what's in there?" Said, "I was at the show and I bought some silver." He said, "Oh, the Silver Summit." And he knew all about it. But like you say, traveling with your metals close to your body, overseas, international, probably not the best move.
No, you just give them reason to stop you. I mean, I'm not a citizen of the U.S., and I'm looking more and more about being out of the U.S. longer. And it's kind of, I don't know who's in my situation exactly, but I don't want to give up my ties to the U.S. quite yet. But I do want to look, around at my opportunities outside the country. And from what I understand, even if I have to get permission because I have a green card, I have to apply for something to be out longer than a few months. But no matter how long I go, or what permissions I get, they can stop me when I come back and ask a lot of questions and just make my life very difficult. And I don't want to, raise any flag, any alarms to be looked at. So I'm trying to be as surreptitious about the movement of my capital and where it is and all stuff as I can. And right now, I'm just kind of bunkering down in the U.S. And if I find reason to leave for good, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that with all my wealth intact. It's a tricky thing, and it's probably best to be looking at these things now before it's on everybody's lips. But yeah, it's not as simple as just putting all this stuff in a bag and going across the board. You have to that's real money, and they want to know about it. And it's not easy enough. But I'd start with looking at actual land that doesn't exist in the U.S. That's probably the best way to do it right now.
Yeah, well, there are definitely ways to do it. I mean, I know like Simon Black talks a lot about it, and there's guys in Agora that talk about it as well. And it just makes some sense. Doug Casey's big on it. But what about the fact that 99% of the U.S., the population is blind to what's going on here? They don't have a clue of the pending economic collapse or the potential, the turnkey totalitarian police state that's emerging.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with, friends and family all the time. I'm always having this conversation, like, why don't you get citizenship? We're all doing it. Why, some of us have already done it. Why don't you do it? I have friends who are, all think I'm nuts outside of my professional life. The people I know from, my neighborhood and childhood, whatever, they can't even begin to fathom why I'm so worried. Like, why am I storing silver and nickels in my basement? Why am I casting an eyebrow? Where if I told them, like, I would never buy a house. Well, maybe it could be a smart investment move, and to get a mortgage now in a U.S. house. I'll discuss that in my newsletter. But I'd more likely want to buy it someplace where the U.S. can get their hands on it. It's very hard to expatriate a few acres in Argentina in case you run afoul of the U.S. authorities when the state comes down a bit harder, as it will in the near future, on people who are trying to protect themselves.
Yeah, so you see this as a trend, an inexorable trend forward where the government just they need more because the deficit, because 61% of the debt that got created, the U.S. debt, was purchased by the Federal Reserve last year. And this is a spiral, and it's going to continue on until the collapse occurs or until there's a major attitude adjustment, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be counting on that attitude adjustment. I read recently that the Federal Reserve now has more of the U.S. The government's debt than China and somebody else. I'm wondering at what point they can stop bothering with brokers at all and just buy it straight from the government. Like, here's some money, And the capital controls are starting. They're going to start seriously pretty soon, I think. You're not going to be able to get your wealth out in the very near future, I don't think at all. That's why I'd say if you're going to do it, you may want to do it as physical property, someplace else that cannot, be taken away from you.
Right.
To be honest with you, I'm kind of, foot in both places. Like, there's places I can go if I have to leave the country. I felt that things that I do for a living or things that I write or think become not so popular. And it sounds kind of, it's this way out there idea that government's going to crack down on things you say. And but the signs seems to be there to me. What about you? Don't you? They want to see what you're talking about on the web. They want to control the information. They want to quell dissent. They want people who like us who get people worried. They want us not to do that. So I'm looking at a day when I may have to leave forever. In the meantime, though, as far as my actual money goes, I do what I can here to protect it from the depredations. I don't save in dollars. That's basically all you can do here right now. And as far as getting it out, I get a little tricky. I'm not really looking to do that. That's not part of my plan, to be honest with you. Getting out with my money.
Yeah, you just want to get out when the time comes.
Pretty much. I'm lining my nest now so that if I'm stuck here, I will have purchasing power. That's how I look at it. That's what I'm concerned about more than anything else. More than making money, money on my money. I just want to keep what I've earned. Make sure. Like, for example, if you've been saving gold and silver, gas prices aren't bothering you.
Exactly.
Obama, I see him there talking about he's saying, it's instability in the Middle East. That's the entire reason for the gas price. And some of the commentators would be saying about the speculators are doing it. It's always, they never mention the Federal Reserve. They never mention the $16 trillion that we know about that they've just willed into existence. And they're destroying it. To destroy you and your savings. And so if you're going to be stuck here, and if I'm stuck here, you want to protect what you have. Like, if you've been saving gold and silver, again, the destruction of the dollar has not bothered you as much, or maybe not at all. You can actually buy more gas in terms of gold now than you could a few years ago. So you're doing pretty well. So yeah. I recommend if you're going to be here, that's kind of the backstop plan. If you're stuck here, things get really bad. You at least you're not going to be wiped out because all your holdings are in dollars.
Yeah, it's always the evil speculators. They're driving up the price of gas, of oil. They're driving up the price of metals. They're driving up the price of food. But God forbid anyone should go look at the Federal Reserve and show that the purchasing power of the dollar since 1913, it's lost about 97 or 98% of its value. And the only reason why it has any value is because there's been a huge increase in productivity since 1913. And partly that's due to other parts of the country, other parts of the world getting wealthier and exporting their stuff to us because they think that those green stamps we give them have some value, and they have up until recently. It's been okay, but
well, it helps a lot with Nixon when he took us officially off the gold standard. We're all Keynesians now, and we're not going to redeem any. There's no official gold prices with the flow in the market. At the same time, he talked to who's that Saudi king, and make sure that they only accept dollars for the oil. But we see the world moving away from that right now. It's great when you have the petrodollar when you have to go get dollars first. It creates artificial demand for dollars. So even though it's worth nothing and they can print all of it that they want, the world needs oil and they have to go get dollars to get the oil first. But that's changing. You already see the people who aren't so concerned about staying in the U.S.'s good graces, dealing with each other in gold and their own currencies. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, well,
China's, Iran's, Russia.
They're not going to go to gold until they absolutely have to, because they got all this paper, their own and every other country's, and they want to get rid of that paper as much as they can and try to use reverse Gresham's law, use the bad money to get good money, but they're going to be limited in that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when I go take my dollars to the silver broker, I'm like, I need silver for this. I'm trying to, and when I'm big on nickels too, and I take my dollars to the bank and say I have to save in cash. I want it to be a kind of cash that's going to hold its value. As I mentioned before to you, I think we talked about this, that how the nickel right now, the metal content is above the face value in terms of what the metal's worth.
It's been for for quite a while now, over a year.
Really. It's been it's got as high as 7.5 cents for the nickel. So yeah, I'm
now I could tell you what it is right now, because you can go to coinflation.com. One nickel is worth 5.3 cents, which is 106.58% of the percent of the metal in the coin. So it's 6.58%. You're guaranteed, you buy a nickel for 5 cents, you automatically have a 6.58% return on your investment. And it was over 6 cents, right? It was close to 7.
7.5% for a little while.
Right.
I first started getting really into this idea, because I'm afraid that when it gets too high, obviously, they're going to stop minting with the current metal companies. They're going to change that, like they did with the silver coin. And again, the silver coins, the quarters, they're 30 times face value right now, and that silver's off its highs, its recent high, $50 recently.
Yeah, it's guaranteed
right now.
Guaranteed. They will demonetize the nickel. It'll become coated zinc like the penny. Right now, it's interesting. Nickel is a misnomer, because a nickel is actually 75% copper, 25% nickel. But that it's going to be withdrawn. It'll be hoarded out of existence, because I remember this in 1965. My brother walked into the house and he had coins in each hand, and he said, "These are the new coins, the new quarter and dime," and he dropped them on the floor and they sounded real tinny. And then he dropped silver coins, the 64 and earlier, and they had substance. And I never knew at the time that one day I'd be doing a show about that, and that it would be a formative event in my then very young life. I was 7 then. So here we are. It's 40-something years later, right? 40. They took it out in 65, so it's 47 years later, and we're still talking about this like it was yesterday, before you were born. But I remember it vividly. And then in I think it was 82, they took copper pennies. They got substituted, but you can still get them, and they're worth 2 cents compared to the value, 2.5 cents. So it's
as high as 3 too. That also got up 2.983, something like that. Cents for when the dollar was mid doldrums, like last summer or so. And gold was going toward 2,000, so it was going toward 50, and the nickel itself was worth 7.5 cents. All these, and the penny was worth about, I'm afraid it got over 3, but it was around 3.
Close to 3. And
so, then we talk about fleeing, like you see what's coming down, and you'll have to flee in the ways that are available to us. A lot of my I'm not a guy like Doug Casey or Bill Bonner. I don't have, or Jim Sinclair. I don't have the kind of wealth they need to protect. I don't have this that size of anything. So I'm looking at, I don't want to leave. I like the U.S. overall. I like, the culture, and I like living here. And I will do it if I have to. But I'm fleeing where I can. And one thing is you really should do is flee the money. Don't hold on to that. It's just such an easy way. And the thing is that just like they may make it hard for you to leave the country with lots of money, especially real money. You start buying gold and silver, like, where are you going with this? And why don't you have a return ticket? What's going on here? Just like that, they may make it hard for you to spend your real money when the time comes. It was illegal to hold gold for 40 years or so, right? American citizens were not allowed to. You can hold it as jewelry, but not as money. You can do that. So who knows what's going to happen to silver? Who knows if they're going to, go after people who've been hoarding nickels? Who knows? Because this administration says no problem, like instituting some really draconian, like far-reaching policies, insulting us. How dare you? But so who knows? But it's one step you can take. Just buy the insurance. It's insurance. Buy it now. You can't pick up your whole family and leave. You can't sell your house right now because maybe you bought it at the wrong time. You take a big hit on it. At least leave the currency.
Exactly. Totally in line with you on that. And there are certain communities, I don't want to call them money launderers because that wouldn't be fair, and I won't name them by name, but there are certain communities that there's absolute trust. And if you go to a member here in the U.S. and you hand them X amount of money, it's automatically, and you say, I want to pick it up in Brazil in a month, it's done. And their word is their bond. It's not going to be lost. And they've gotten into trouble for this in the past. Like I say, I don't want to say who they are, and it's not something that I am personally doing, but it's something that people should be aware of, that there's an informal network of international money transfers, which is why the U.S. government is trying to get rid of all cash. They don't want you to have dollars, paper money, or for that matter, gold and silver. They want you to use credit cards, ATM cards, and digital money, because then they have total control over tracking you, and they have total control over taking that money away from you when they deem you shouldn't have it. So that's something that people really need to understand, the disappearance of the function of physical cash in society.
Absolutely. We should talk more about that, actually, maybe off the air a little later. And I guess if you are, you're not leaving your money as just it's in your bank account. Obviously you have to pay your bills, and I leave that money there, and they can see all that. They can see me paying my monthly bills, fine. But I go and withdraw every week or so, and I go turn it into real money, and I hide it, and I defend it. And when the time comes, they're going to probably not want people handing over their silver and nickels for a house or for food, even though it's in their best interest to do so. So we'll be relying on informal networks. I ran an article recently by a guy named Brandon Smith. He's at alt-market.com. Love his stuff. And he talks about that Americans are going to have to rely on a gray and black market at some point. I don't see how that's not avoidable. So just prepare yourself for that. I'm not advocating anybody do anything illegal, especially not on the air. But just prepare.
Never.
These are the realities of it. Yeah, I'm talking about like fleeing the evil police state that we're becoming. I'm very open about that, and I'm saying when the time comes, you're ready to do things that are in your own best interest, that are moral and right, even if they're not quite legal. Because that's you're going to be forced to do what's going to protect. Or you can play their game and just be broke. There's that option. Keep it in digits, keep it in the money that they can track and see, and then when that money's worthless, have a hard time making ends meet if you're stuck here.
Yeah, well.
So I'm saying diversify those risks. Like, if you can, if you're going to buy physical property, I wouldn't do it in the U.S. or Canada for that matter, or anywhere in Europe. A lot of people that I respect and who see the world the way I do are doing it in Latin America, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. And if you're going to be here, don't diversify your risk out of their money.
Hey, and don't forget, you don't have to buy real estate in foreign countries unless you see it as a good investment. You can just rent there. It's extremely cheap to rent in large parts of Latin America. And everything we're saying now about diversifying is totally legal now. You have a virtually unfettered right to buy assets any place in the world as long as you file the necessary reports. That's what you have to understand now. How much longer that's going to exist, how long it will go on for, your unfettered right to expatriate your assets, nobody knows. If you give up your American citizenship, you will have to pay a certain wealth tax on those assets that you have. But for right now, you can do this 100% legally. There's a guy I know by the name of Ken Rubenstein. He is the foremost asset protection attorney in the country, probably in the world, because he's been doing it the longest. And he's helped people. Originally, he started helping people protect their assets from ambulance chasers, whether they were doctors or people who could be ruined by litigation. And in fact, we met, him and I, on a number of cases because I was representing the creditor and the debtor called them in, luckily for me, too late, and he couldn't do much for them. But the fact of the matter is, you have a right to do it, and you need to talk to professionals, but there's no reason why you shouldn't, just common sense wise, but do it in friendly jurisdictions where if everything hits the fan, they're not going to hate Americans or North Americans or Western Europeans, because this could get really bad and people could really resent us even more than they do right now.
It's funny. I want to talk about that a little bit. First of all, yeah, by all means, I look at my job as just getting people to think about this stuff. I am not the expert to go to for how to, the guys who can do this, who know what you have to do. But I think it's the bigger picture here is that, like you said, it's legal right now, and there are huge penalties for taking necessary steps that I think are necessary. But they can change that. I mean, that just bothers me so much that yeah, you're allowed now, and if you do it, we're going to make it hurt. That's what they're telling you, and that's something when you have to base up in the mind that you have to know what's right, and it basically know what to ignore, and know when they're just being outright evil. And so that's already happening, and not be afraid to take the right steps, even when it's a little trickier. It gets a little murkier as far as using the real money, for example, for your daily transactions if you had to. And a lot of people ask me, like, Latin America, kidnap rate in this place, and you go there and you're going to be kidnapped by drug dealers. I'm like, do you see what's going on in your own country? I read about these drones, they're going to be filling our skies up, and the Utah data center. I'm like, don't you feel things are a little scarier here? And I go to these places, and they're not that bad. I feel very free. I feel everything's okay when I go to places in Latin America. And I'm saying I want to live there full time, but it's kind of pretty bad here.
Yeah, and it could very well get worse. So anyway, Gary, we got to get going. If you're looking to learn more about whiskey and gunpowder and Agora, where do you go?
Whiskeyandgunpowder.com, just like it sounds, whiskeyandgunpowder.com, and that's under the aegis of Agora Financial, of course, and you can check out the website, agorafinancial.com, for all their newsletters.
Great, and you can always go over to kerrylutz.com. We've got links to just about everything. We've also got financialsurvivalnetwork.com. If you go there, sign up for the free financial survival toolkit. We cover a lot of these things there, and it's things that you need to start thinking of. So, Gary? And
by the way, yeah, and if your friends think you're crazy, that's fine. Maybe you shouldn't even talk to them about this stuff anymore. Just go ahead and do what you need to do, because that's the other thing. Like, nobody, they're not seeing it coming. They don't think it can get really bad. They don't see Rome or 1938 Berlin. They don't see any of that in our current situation. But I think we're kind of heading there. So
yeah, my oldest friend is now buying gold and silver. It's taking me 4 years to convince him, but he's finally doing it, and you know who you are out there. So, Gary, great having you on. We'll talk to you again soon. Happy travels, safe travels, and prosperity ahead for you.
Always a good time, Gary. Thanks.